The cold bit through every layer of Hyunwoo's thermal suit. -45 degrees Celsius. That was the temperature on the surface of Ganymede, Jupiter's largest moon. Inside Hangar Bay 7, it wasn't much better. The heating systems could only do so much against the frozen hell outside. Hyunwoo wiped grease from his hands and looked at the transport shuttle he'd just finished repairing. Another successful job. The mining crews would be happy to have their equipment hauler back in service. He was tired. His shift had started 14 hours ago, and his bones ached from the constant cold. He was about to head to the decompression chamber when the alarm sounded. Not the sharp, urgent wail of an emergency, but the steady pulse that meant incoming traffic. Hyunwoo frowned. No ships were scheduled to arrive tonight. His communicator crackled. "Hyunwoo, you still in Bay 7? It was Commander Ji-won's voice, tense and clipped. "Yes, Commander. Just finishing up." "Good. Stay there. We've got a situation." The line went quiet for a moment. Then Ji-won continued. "We picked up a distress beacon an hour ago. Alien vessel, completely dead in space. We're towing it in now." Hyunwoo's eyebrows rose. Alien ships rarely came this far out. Ganymede Station was a human mining outpost. Nothing special. What kind of alien? Velthari. Their rescue ship suffered some kind of catastrophic failure. The crew is in bad shape. We're bringing them straight to medical. But I need you to assess the ship. See if we can help. Velthari. Hyunwoo had heard of them but never met one. They were known for keeping to themselves, and their technology was supposed to be impossibly advanced. He felt a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. "Understood. Commander, I'll be ready." 20 minutes later, the hangar's massive doors groaned open. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees as the void rushed in. Hyunwoo pulled his suit's hood tighter and watched as the salvage tugs maneuvered their prize into the bay. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest human transport. But it was the design that made Hyunwoo's breath catch. The hull looked organic, smooth curves that reminded him of a seashell. Crystalline structures jutted from various points, catching the harsh lights of the hangar and throwing rainbow reflections across the ice-covered floor. Some of the crystals were dark, lifeless. Others pulsed with a faint, dying light. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Hyunwoo turned to see Dae-jung, his young apprentice, standing beside him. The kid's eyes were wide with wonder. "Beautiful and broken," Hyunwoo replied. He'd learned long ago that beauty didn't mean much if something didn't work. The tugs released their magnetic clamps, and the alien ship settled onto the hangar floor with a heavy thud. Immediately, emergency crews swarmed toward the vessel's airlocks. Medical personnel in white suits, their breath fogging in the freezing air. Hyunwoo approached more slowly, his trained eye scanning the ship's exterior. The hull was damaged in several places, not impact damage, more like the material itself had degraded, become brittle. Frost covered most of the surface now, ice crystals forming intricate patterns across the alien metal. Or was it metal? When he got closer, he could see the hull had an almost skin-like texture. A hatch hissed open near the front of the ship. Medical teams rushed inside. Minutes passed like hours. Then they emerged, carrying stretchers. Hyunwoo counted 12 aliens, all unconscious. The Velthari were tall and slender, their skin a pale blue that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. They wore what looked like biosuits, but the material was failing, peeling away in places. One of the medics was speaking urgently into her radio. "Commander, we need to get them to the medical bay immediately. Their suits are degrading. They're freezing." As the stretchers passed by, one of the aliens stirred. Her eyes opened, a brilliant gold color that seemed to glow. She tried to speak, but only a weak sound came out. A translator device on her chest flickered to life. "The ship," she whispered. "The core. Sleeping. Must not. Wake wrong." Then her eyes closed again, and the medics rushed her away. Commander Ji-won appeared at Hyunwoo's shoulder. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. "That was their captain, Thel Rix." "What do you think she meant?" Hyun-woo shook his head. No idea. But I'm going to find out. He looked at the ship. Really looked at it. The pulsing crystals. The organic hull. The way the whole structure seemed to be one connected piece rather than assembled parts. This wasn't like any machine he'd ever worked on. I want you to stabilize it, G1 said. Earth Command is very interested in Velthari technology. If we can help them, and maybe learn something in the process, that's a win for everyone. Hyun-woo nodded. But something about the commander's tone bothered him. She was talking about the ship like it was a prize, not someone's vessel in distress. He kept his thoughts to himself. As Ji-won walked away to coordinate the medical emergency, Hyun-woo circled the ship slowly. Dae-jung followed, his scanner out and beeping uselessly. I'm not getting any normal readings, the young man said. That's because it's not just technology, Hyun-woo said quietly. He wasn't sure how he knew this, but he could feel it. Years of working with machines had given him an instinct, an ability to sense what was wrong with something even before he opened it up. And this ship felt different, not dead, not quite alive, but somewhere in between. They found what looked like an engine access port near the rear of the vessel. Hyun-woo ran his gloved hand over the surface. It was cold. Colder than the surrounding air. The material felt wrong under his fingers, brittle and fragile. Get me a thermal blanket, he told Dae-jung. And set up some heaters. If we're going to work on this thing, we need to at least keep it from freezing solid. While Dae-jung ran off to gather equipment, Hyun-woo found an entrance to the ship's interior. The doorway was open, left that way by the medical teams. He stepped inside. The interior was dark, lit only by his helmet light. The walls had the same organic quality as the exterior, covered in patterns that might have been decorative, or might have been functional. He couldn't tell. The air was thin, barely breathable. His suit's sensors whined about low oxygen and strange atmospheric compounds. He made his way deeper into the ship, following what he guessed was the main corridor. His light swept across strange instruments and displays, all dark and inactive. There were no right angles anywhere, everything flowing in curves and spirals. Then he found it. The engine room, or what he assumed was the engine room. The space was huge, a cathedral of crystalline structures rising from floor to ceiling. At the center was a massive sphere, perhaps 3 meters across, suspended by tendrils of that same organic material. The sphere was translucent, and inside he could see swirling patterns of light, barely moving, dying. Hyun-woo approached slowly, reverently. This had to be the core the captain had mentioned. It looked nothing like any engine he'd ever seen. No fuel lines, no cooling systems, no moving parts, just this beautiful, failing sphere. He reached out and placed his bare hand on its surface. He'd taken off his glove without thinking, which was dangerous in this cold. But he needed to feel it. The sphere was warm. Not hot, just warm, like the skin of a living thing. And beneath his palm, he felt something. A rhythm. Slow and faint, but definitely there, a heartbeat. Hyun-woo pulled his hand back, his heart racing. He stared at the sphere, understanding washing over him like cold water. This wasn't just a machine. This ship was alive. Or at least, it had been. And now it was dying, just like the crew he'd seen carried away on stretchers. Behind him, Dae-jung called out. Hyun-woo? You in here? I've got the equipment, but Hyun-woo barely heard him. He was still staring at the core, at that faint pulse of light within. The captain's words echoed in his mind. Must not wake wrong. He didn't know what that meant yet, but he was going to figure it out, because something in him recognized what he was seeing. He'd felt this way once before, years ago, when his sister's colony had sent out a distress call, when no rescue came in time. This time would be different. This time, he wouldn't let them die. He placed his hand on the sphere again, and for just a moment, he could have sworn it pulsed brighter, as if it knew he was there. As if it was glad someone had finally come. 3 days passed. and Hyun-woo felt like he was trying to speak a language he didn't know. Every tool he used on the Velthari ship failed. Scanners gave nonsense readings. Diagnostic programs crashed. Even basic visual inspection told him nothing useful. The ship's systems were completely foreign to him. He stood in the engine room, staring at the core sphere. It was dimmer now than when he'd first found it. The slow heartbeat rhythm he'd felt had grown weaker. Whatever this thing was, it was dying faster. Any progress? Commander Ji-won's voice came through his communicator. Hyun-woo sighed. None. I don't even know where to start, Commander. This isn't technology, I understand. There was a pause. Then Ji-won said, I'm sending someone to help. Mina, from Xenotech Division. She knows more about alien cultures than anyone on this station. I need an engineer, not a cultural specialist. You need both, Ji-won replied. Trust me on this one. An hour later, Mina arrived at the hangar. She was a small woman with tired eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She carried a data tablet and wore a thick coat over her station uniform. You must be Hyun-woo, she said, offering her hand. I've heard you're the best mechanic on Ganymede. Hyun-woo shook her hand. Best doesn't mean much, when I can't even figure out how to turn this thing on. Mina smiled. That's because you're thinking of it like a machine. The Velthari don't build machines the way we do. They grow them. Grow them? Their ships are partially biological. Biomechanical hybrids. They're engineered, yes, but they're also alive in some sense. Mina walked around the core sphere, her eyes scanning every detail. The Velthari form bonds with their ships. Neural connections. They don't pilot them so much as merge with them. The Hyun-woo processed this information. It explained why his tools weren't working. You couldn't fix a living thing with a wrench and diagnostic software. So, how do we wake it up? That's the problem, Mina said. She pulled up information on her tablet. Normally, a Velthari crew member would interface directly with the core. But humans don't have the biological receptors they do. We can't connect. Dae-jung had been listening from across the room. What about the captain? Thelrix? Could she do it? Mina shook her head. I checked with medical. She's stable, but weak. The doctors say she needs at least another week of recovery before she can even walk, and even then, she might not be strong enough to bond with a core this damaged. Hyun-woo felt frustration building in his chest. So we just wait? While this ship dies and the crew stays in stasis? The crew's condition is deteriorating, Mina said quietly. Their biosuits failed during the cold exposure. Station medical tech isn't compatible with their biology. We're doing what we can, but... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Hyun-woo looked at the core again. That faint pulse of light, growing dimmer. There has to be another way. Over the next day, Hyun-woo barely slept. He studied everything Mina could give him about the Velthari. Their culture, their technology, their philosophy. The more he learned, the more he understood how different their approach was from human engineering. Humans built things to be controlled, to be commanded. The Velthari grew things to be partnered with. Their ships weren't tools but companions, and this ship, this time's Whisper of Dawn Times as he'd learned it was called, wasn't broken in the mechanical sense. It was traumatized. On the fourth morning, Hyun-woo made a decision. He went to the medical bay. The facility was quiet, sterile white walls and the soft beep of monitoring equipment. He found Thelrix in a private room. She was awake, sitting up in bed. Her blue skin had regained some of its shimmer, but she looked tired, ancient, even though Mina had told him Velthari aged differently than humans. You're the mechanic, Thelrix said when she saw him. Her voice was stronger now, though still carrying a musical quality that the translator couldn't quite capture. The one who found my ship. 4. Yes, my name is Hyun-woo. I am Thelrix, captain of the Times, Whisper of Dawn *. She looked at him with those golden eyes. Tell me, Is my ship dead? Hyunwoo pulled up a chair and sat down. No. But it's dying. I need your help to save it. Thelrix turned her gaze to the window, looking out at the starfield beyond. I cannot bond with the core in my current state. I am too weak. The connection would kill me. Then teach me how to do it. Thelrix looked back at him sharply. Impossible. You are human. You do not have the neural pathways, the biological interface. You are. She paused, searching for words. Too cold, too metal. Your people build machines of steel and circuits. You do not understand living ships. Maybe not, Hyunwoo said. But I understand machines, and I know when something is hurt. Thelrix studied him for a long moment. What do you know of hurt, human mechanic? Hyunwoo felt the old pain rising in his chest. He usually kept it buried, but something about Thelrix's direct gaze made him speak. 7 years ago, my sister was on a colony transport. They sent a distress call. Engine failure, life support failing. A rescue ship was supposed to come, but it never did. By the time help arrived, everyone on board was dead. Including her. He looked down at his hands. After that, I learned to listen to machines. Really listen. Not just run diagnostics and follow procedures, but feel what they needed. It sounds crazy, but I developed an instinct for it. I can sense when something's wrong, sometimes before the instruments catch it. When he looked up, Thelrix's expression had softened. The Times, Whisper of Dawn Times, was on a rescue mission. When the core failed, we were evacuating a dying station. So many people, so much fear. The ship felt it all. When we lost power, we lost 53 souls who were in the cargo bay. They froze in the void before we could save them. The ship is grieving, Hyunwoo said. It wasn't a question. Yes. The core witnessed death, felt the loss of life it was meant to protect. It has retreated inward, like a wounded animal. That is why it will not wake. They sat in silence for a moment, two people from different worlds sharing the weight of loss. Finally, Thelrix spoke. Very well, human mechanic. I will teach you. But know this, if you fail, if you approach the core wrongly, it will shatter. The feedback will destroy what remains of its consciousness, and my crew, still in their damaged biosuits, will have no hope of survival. Do you understand? I understand. Then let us begin. For the next 8 hours, Thelrix taught Hyunwoo everything she could about the Times Whisper of Dawn *. Not the technical details, but the nature of the ship itself. How to approach it with respect, rather than dominance. How to listen for its patterns, its rhythms. How to offer connection, rather than demand it. Mina and Daejung joined them, taking notes and asking questions. Together, they worked on a theory, a way for Hyunwoo to interface with the core, using modified neural sensors and his own intuition. It was late evening when Commander G1 interrupted. She appeared on the room's video screen, her face grim. I just received word from Earth Command, she said. They're sending a salvage team. If we can't get the ship operational in 72 hours, they're going to strip it for parts. They can't do that. Thelrix sat up straighter, anger flashing in her eyes. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times is a living vessel. It's not salvage. To Earth Command, it's valuable alien technology, G1 said. She looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I'll try to buy you more time. But 3 days is all I can guarantee. After G1 signed off, Thelrix turned to Hyunwoo. You must try now. Tonight. There is no more time for preparation. Hyunwoo felt his stomach clench with fear. I'm not ready. You will never be ready, Thelrix said. But you understand loss. You know what it means to need rescue. That will have to be enough. Back in the hangar, Hyunwoo stood before the core sphere. Daejung had set up the modified neural sensors, bands of wire and circuitry that wrapped around Hyunwoo's head. Mina monitored the equipment, her face tight with worry. Through his earpiece, He could hear Thelrix's voice, guiding him from the medical bay. Remember, do not force the connection. Offer it. Let the ship decide if it will accept you. Hyunwoo took a deep breath and placed both hands on the sphere's surface. It was still warm. That faint heartbeat still present. He closed his eyes and tried to do what Thelrix had taught him, not to analyze or diagnose, but simply to feel. At first, there was nothing. Then, slowly, he began to sense something. Patterns of energy, moving through the core like blood through veins. But the patterns were wrong, stuttering and weak. He pushed deeper, trying to understand. And suddenly, the ship pushed back. Pain exploded through Hyunwoo's head. It felt like his skull was splitting open, like fire was pouring through his neurons. He heard screaming and realized it was his own voice. The world tilted, and then everything went black. He woke up on the hangar floor. Mina and Daejung were leaning over him, their faces pale with fear. What happened? He managed to ask. The core rejected you, Mina said. The feedback knocked you unconscious. You've been out for 10 minutes. Hyunwoo tried to sit up, but his head pounded. I have to try again. No, Daejung said firmly. Another shock like that could kill you. But Hyunwoo was already getting to his feet, swaying but determined. He looked at the core sphere. It was darker now, the pulse barely visible. I know what I did wrong, he said. I was trying to be Velthari. But I'm not. I'm human. He turned to Mina. Get Commander G1. Tell her I'm going to try something different. Commander G1 arrived within minutes, her expression severe. I heard about what happened. Mina says another attempt could kill you. Hyunwoo stood in front of the core sphere, his head still aching from the failed connection. It will kill the ship if I don't try. The salvage team arrives in 67 hours, G1 said. Even if you succeed, we're running out of time. Then I'd better not waste any more of it. G1 looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Hyunwoo's face stopped her. She'd been a military commander long enough to recognize determination when she saw it. What do you need? For everyone to leave the engine room. Just me and the core. That's insane, Daejung protested. If something goes wrong, then you can drag me out again, Hyunwoo interrupted. But I need quiet. No distractions. No monitoring equipment. Just silence. Mina touched his arm gently. Are you sure about this? Hyunwoo wasn't sure about anything, but he nodded anyway. The Velthari approach their ships with reverence and ritual. They try to become one with them. But I'm not Velthari. I need to do this my way. Reluctantly, the others left. Through his earpiece, Hyunwoo could still hear Thelrix's voice from the medical bay. What are you planning, human? I'm going to talk to it. Hyunwoo said simply. There was a long pause. Then Thelrix said, That is not how the bonding works. I know. But it's how I work. Hyunwoo removed the neural sensors from his head and set them aside. I've spent my whole life fixing broken things by understanding what they need, not by connecting to them with wires and technology, but by listening, by paying attention. He approached the core sphere slowly. The engine room was cold and dark, lit only by the faint glow of the dying core and his helmet light. The crystalline structures around him cast strange shadows on the walls. Hyunwoo placed his bare hands on the sphere's surface. The warmth was still there, but fainter now. He could feel that slow heartbeat, each pulse weaker than the last. I don't know if you can understand me, he said aloud. His voice echoed in the vast chamber. I don't know if you think the way living things think, or if you're something else entirely. But I'm going to talk to you anyway. He closed his eyes, not trying to force a connection but simply being present. Thelrix told me what happened. The rescue mission. The people you couldn't save. I know what that's like. I know what it feels like when you fail, when the help comes too late. The memories came flooding back. His sister's face on the video call. Trying to smile, even as the transport's lights dimmed behind her. It's okay, Hyunwoo. They're coming. The rescue ship is coming. But the rescue ship never came. He'd learned later that it had been diverted to a higher priority emergency, a commercial liner with wealthy passengers. His sister and the other colonists weren't important enough. Her name was Jia, Hyunwoo continued, his voice breaking slightly. She was younger than me by 3 years. Always smiling. Always believing things would work out. She wanted to be a teacher on the new colony. She had so many plans. He felt wetness on his cheeks and realized he was crying. He couldn't remember the last time he'd cried. When she died, I couldn't fix it. I couldn't go back in time and make the rescue ship come. All I could do was promise myself that I would never let something break if I could repair it. That I would never let anyone down because I didn't try hard enough. The core's pulse remained weak, unchanged. But Hyunwoo kept talking. You tried to save them. Those 53 people. You were there, you were trying, but you failed. And it hurts. I understand that. The guilt is like a weight you carry every day. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep thinking about it. It never really goes away. He opened his eyes and looked at the swirling patterns inside the sphere. But here's what I learned, and it took me years to figure it out. The guilt means you care. It means those lives mattered to you. And as long as you carry that weight, they're not forgotten. Their deaths meant something because you remember them. Through his earpiece, he heard Thelrix's voice, thick with emotion. Hyunwoo, the thing is, he continued, speaking to the core, you can't save everyone. Sometimes, you do everything right, and people still die. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you real. And the people who are still alive, Thelrix and her crew, they need you. Not the perfect version of you that never fails. They need you as you are right now, wounded but still fighting. The sphere's warmth seemed to increase slightly under his palms. Or maybe he was imagining it. I need you too, Hyunwoo admitted. Because if I can help bring you back, if I can save you and the crew, then maybe all those years of fixing things meant something. Maybe I can finally do what I couldn't do for Jia. He pressed his forehead against the sphere's surface. So please, come back, not because you're supposed to. Not because it's your duty, but because there are still people waiting to be saved. There's still work to do, and you don't have to do it alone. For a long moment, nothing happened. The engine room remained cold and dark. The heartbeat pulse continued its slow, dying rhythm. Then, something changed. The warmth increased. Not suddenly, but gradually. Like sunrise. The pulse grew stronger. More steady. The patterns inside the sphere began to swirl faster. Brighter, the crystalline structures around the room began to glow. One by one, like stars waking up, Hyunwoo gasped as he felt something brush against his mind. Not painful like before, but gentle. Curious. It was like the core was reaching out to him, asking a question he couldn't quite hear. Yes, he whispered. I'm here. I'm listening. Images flooded his mind. Not his memories, but the ship's. He saw through the core's perspective, centuries of service, countless rescues, faces of people saved from disaster, joy and purpose. Then the recent mission. The overwhelming fear and desperation of the refugees. The moment of system failure. The terrible cold as 53 lives winked out like candles in the void. And beneath it all, a question. Why should I wake? I failed. I let them die. Hyunwoo sent back his own answer, not in words, but in feeling. You didn't fail. You tried. And trying matters. The people who lived because of you matter. Wake up. Please wake up. Another question. Who are you? I'm someone who understands. I'm someone who wants to help. The presence in his mind grew stronger. Warmer. He felt the core examining him, feeling his own grief and guilt, understanding that he, too, carried the weight of loss. And then, acceptance. A decision made, light exploded through the engine room. The core sphere blazed brilliant white, so bright Hyunwoo had to close his eyes. The heartbeat rhythm became strong and steady, pulsing through the floor beneath his feet. All around him, the crystalline structures sang with energy, filling the air with a sound like music. Through his earpiece, he heard shouts of surprise from the hangar. Daejung's voice. "The ship's systems are coming online. All of them." Hyunwoo opened his eyes and found himself still connected to the core, his hands and forehead pressed against its surface. But now he could feel the ship's awareness. Vast and ancient, and awake, it knew him, recognized him, and in that recognition, there was something like gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered. A response came, not in words but in feeling. "You spoke to my pain. You did not try to fix me. You understood." "I still don't know how to repair your damaged systems," Hyunwoo admitted. "I'm just a human mechanic." The core's presence seemed to wrap around him like a warm blanket. "You are enough. Show me what humans can do." Hyunwoo stepped back from the sphere, breaking the physical contact. The mental connection remained, lighter now, like a thread connecting them. He looked at the engine room with new eyes, suddenly aware of which systems were damaged and which were intact. The core was sharing its knowledge with him, showing him what it needed. His communicator erupted with voices. "Commander G1. Hyunwoo. What did you do?" The ship just lit up like a star. "Hyunwoo, Thelrix. The Times. Whisper of Dawn Times is awake. I can feel her. How is this possible? Minna. The energy readings are incredible. This is beyond anything in the Velthari databases. Daejung. Boss, are you okay in there?" Hyunwoo smiled, feeling more awake and alive than he had in years. "I'm fine. Better than fine." "How?" Thelrix demanded. "You are human. You cannot bond with a Velthari ship." "I didn't bond the way you do," Hyunwoo explained. "I didn't try to merge with it or control it. I just talked to it, listened to it, treated it like something that was hurting and needed understanding." There was a long silence. Then Thelrix laughed, a sound of wonder and disbelief. "You humans. You are impossible. You take our most sacred technology, and you talk to it. Is that wrong?" Hyunwoo asked, suddenly worried he'd violated some cultural rule. "No," Thelrix said softly. "It is perfect. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times did not need another Velthari. It needed something we could not give it. You offered it your own pain, your own understanding. You gave it permission to be broken." Hyunwoo looked at the core sphere, now glowing steadily. "So what happens now?" "Now," Thelrix said, "you teach me how to fix a living ship with human methods. Because we have 65 hours before the salvage team arrives. And this vessel is still too damaged to fly." Commander G1's voice cut in. "Actually, we have a bigger problem. Admiral Tae-min just contacted me. The salvage team is coming early. They'll be here in 48 hours. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. That's not enough time. Through his connection with the core, he felt something like determination. The ship was awake now, and it had no intention of being torn apart for salvage. Neither did he. "Then we'd better get to work," he said. The next 48 hours became a blur of constant work. Hyunwoo barely slept, barely ate. The connection he'd formed with the core helped him understand what the ship needed, but actually fixing the damage was another matter entirely. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times was hurt in ways no human tool could easily repair. The biomechanical systems had degraded from cold exposure and trauma. Crystalline structures had fractured. The organic hull material had begun to necrotize, dying like frostbitten flesh. But Hyunwoo had something the Velthari didn't. He had a team of human engineers who were very good at improvising. "We need to stabilize the hull first," Minna said, studying the ship's exterior. "The damaged sections are spreading. It's like an infection." Daejung ran his scanner over a particularly bad patch. "Our medical synthesizers could generate something similar to the hull tissue. But we'd need to know the exact composition." "Axis." Daejung ran his scanner over a parted Dae-jung ran his scanner over a partage. Through his connection with the core, Hyun-woo felt the ship trying to communicate. It sent him images, feelings, patterns of information that his human brain struggled to interpret. But slowly, he began to understand. "It's showing me the molecular structure," he said, his eyes unfocused as he concentrated on the mental link. "Minna, get something to record this. I'll try to describe what I'm seeing." For the next hour, Hyun-woo translated information from the ship's core into terms Minna and her xenotech team could use. It was exhausting, like trying to explain color to someone who'd never seen. But gradually, they made progress. The medical synthesizers hummed to life, producing patches of material that resembled the ship's hull. It wasn't perfect. But when they applied it to the damaged sections, the ship's own repair systems began to work with it, incorporating the patches and slowly regenerating. "It's working!" Dae-jung shouted. "The hull is stabilizing." But that was just the first problem. There were dozens more. The ship's power distribution network had failed in multiple places. Human electrical systems were incompatible. But Hyun-woo worked with the core to create hybrid connections. Copper wiring spliced into organic conduits. Human battery packs supplementing the ship's natural energy reserves. It was ugly, a patchwork of two completely different technologies. But it functioned. The navigation systems were completely dark. The crystalline processors that handled the ship's complex calculations had shattered from feedback during the disaster. There was no way to replace them. No way to grow new ones in time. "Can the ship navigate without them?" Commander Ji-won asked. She'd been watching the repair efforts with increasing worry. The deadline was approaching fast. Hyun-woo consulted with the core through their connection. It says it can navigate, if it has a human interface, to help process data. The core can do the complex calculations, but it needs external sensors and displays. "So wire it into our systems," Ji-won said. "It's not that simple. The ship's awareness is too vast for our computers. It would be like trying to pour an ocean into a cup." "What about you?" Mina asked quietly. "You're connected to it. Could you act as the interface?" Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. "I don't know. I'm not trained for that." Through his link with the core, he felt the ship's response. A gentle nudge, like a friend offering support. "We can work together. You and I." Before Hyun-woo could respond, alarms blared throughout the hangar. Commander Ji-won's face went pale as she checked her tablet. The salvage team just arrived. "They're 6 hours early." She looked up, her expression grim. "Admiral Taemin is demanding immediate access to the ship." "No." Thelrix's voice came through the speakers. She'd been resting in the medical bay, but now she sounded fierce. "I will speak to this admiral. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times is a sovereign vessel of the Velthari people. They have no right to salvage it." "With respect, Captain," Ji-won said. "Earth Command doesn't see it that way. You requested our help. In their eyes, that makes the ship their concern." Hyun-woo felt anger building in his chest. Through his connection with the core, he felt the ship's distress. It was afraid. After just waking up, after fighting to come back to life, it was going to be torn apart for parts. "How long can you delay them?" he asked Ji-won. The commander checked her tablet again. "An hour. Maybe 2 if I'm difficult about hangar protocols. But that's all. Then we have 2 hours to make this ship able to defend itself." "Defend itself how?" Dae-jung asked. "It can barely hold together." Hyun-woo turned to his apprentice. "Can you get the ship's communication systems working? Connect them to the station's network?" "Probably, but why?" "Just do it. Trust me." While Dae-jung rushed to work on the communications, Hyun-woo reached deeper into his connection with the core. "Show me what you are," he asked it. "Show me what makes you more than just a machine." The ship responded by opening its memories fully. Hyun-woo gasped as centuries of experience flooded through him. Rescues from collapsing stations, evacuations from dying planets, desperate races against time. The faces of thousands of people saved. The gratitude, The relief, the joy, and woven through it all, a sense of purpose so strong it burned like fire. This was what the Times Whisper of Dawn Times was built for. This was its reason for existing, not to be torn apart and studied, but to save lives. Min-ah, Hyunwoo said. Can you broadcast video and data through the station network? Yes, but do it. I'm going to show everyone what this ship really is. 30 minutes later, Admiral Tae-min arrived at the hangar entrance with a team of military salvage specialists. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes that saw everything in terms of strategic value and cost-benefit analysis. Commander Ji-won met him at the entrance. Admiral, if you'll just wait. I've waited long enough, Commander, Tae-min interrupted. Earth Command has authorized full salvage operations. That alien vessel represents technology decades ahead of our own. We need to study it. The ship is occupied, Ji-won said. My mechanic is still inside. Then get him out. We'll give him 5 minutes, then we're going in whether he's clear or not. But as Tae-min moved toward the inner hangar doors, every screen in the station suddenly lit up. Video displays, computer monitors, even personal data tablets. All of them showing the same thing, the Times Whisper of Dawn *** memories. People throughout the station stopped what they were doing and watched. They saw the ship's first rescue, 300 years ago. A mining colony with failing life support. Every person saved. They saw countless other missions, the ship always arriving when hope seemed lost. They saw the faces of the people saved, heard their words of gratitude, and they saw the recent disaster. The refugee station. Hundreds of people terrified and desperate. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times arriving. Taking them aboard. Then the system failure. The terrible cold. The 53 souls lost. The ship's anguish, so profound it shut down rather than face the weight of its perceived failure. Finally, they saw Hyunwoo. They heard his words to the ship. His story of loss. His understanding of pain. They watched as the ship awakened. Not because it was commanded to, but because someone had treated its grief with compassion. The broadcast ended with a simple message. This ship is not a machine to be salvaged. It is a being that has dedicated 3 centuries to saving lives. Will you destroy it for parts? The hangar was silent. Even Admiral Tae-min had stopped walking, staring at a nearby screen with an expression of shock. Thelrix's voice came through the speakers, weak but determined. Admiral Tae-min, of Earth Command. I am Captain Thelrix of the Times, Whisper of Dawn ***. Under Velthari law, living ships are recognized as sentient beings. What you are proposing is not salvage, it is murder. Tae-min found his voice. That's ridiculous. It's a ship. A very advanced ship, but still just technology. Then you did not understand what you just saw, Thelrix replied. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times thinks. It feels. It makes choices. It grieves. By every definition that matters, it is alive. Even if that's true, Tae-min argued. Human law doesn't recognize machine sentience. But human law recognizes compassion, Commander Ji-won said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She was staring at the screen where the broadcast had played. Her eyes bright with unshed tears. Admiral, I was in command of a destroyer during the Proxima campaign. I had to make a choice between saving my crew and saving civilians. I chose my crew. 143 people died because of that choice. She turned to face Tae-min directly. I've spent every day since wondering if I made the right call. I see their faces in my dreams. And just now, watching that broadcast, I saw something that understood that weight. That ship knows what I feel. It carries the same burden. Commander, your personal feelings are exactly what matter here, Ji-won interrupted. Because if we're not willing to show compassion to something that has spent 3 centuries saving lives, what does that say about us? What kind of people are we? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the salvage team. They'd all seen the broadcast. They'd all felt something watching those memories. Admiral Tae-min looked around at his team, then back at the ship. The Times, Whisper of Dawn Times, sat in the hangar, its crystalline structures glowing softly, the patchwork repairs visible on its hull. It looked fragile and wounded, but also alive in a way that was undeniable once you really looked at it. "How long until the ship is space-worthy?" he finally asked. 12 hours, Hyun-woo's voice came through the speakers. "Maybe less if we're lucky." Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed. "Very well. You have 12 hours. But if the ship can't fly by then, I'll have no choice but to follow my orders. Earth Command wants that technology." "Understood," Hyun-woo said. "We won't waste the time." As Taemin and his team withdrew, Dae-jung let out a whoop of celebration. "We bought more time." But Hyun-woo felt the weight of the deadline like a stone in his stomach. 12 hours to complete repairs that should take days. It was impossible. Through his connection with the core, he felt the ship's response. "Not impossible. Difficult. But we will try together." "Yes," Hyun-woo thought back. Together. The next 12 hours were the hardest of Hyun-woo's life. Every engineer on Ganymede Station volunteered to help. What had started as one mechanic trying to save an alien ship became a station-wide effort. The crystalline navigation processors couldn't be replaced, but Min-ah discovered something remarkable. The ship's core could route processing through Hyun-woo's neural connection and use human navigation computers as auxiliary systems. It was like the ship was using Hyun-woo as a bridge between two completely different types of technology. "It's going to be exhausting for you," Min-ah warned. "Your brain will be constantly translating between the ship's organic systems and our digital ones." "I can handle it," Hyun-woo said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. But what choice did he have? The propulsion systems were the biggest challenge. The ship's main engines had suffered internal damage that would normally take weeks to heal. Velthari ships repaired themselves slowly, growing new tissue and regenerating damaged structures. But there wasn't time for that. Dae-jung had an idea. "What if we support the damaged sections with external bracing? We could use our structural alloys to reinforce the weak points. It wouldn't be pretty, but it would hold. The ship's systems are organic." Thelrix protested from the medical bay. "You cannot just attach metal supports like you would to a human vessel." "Why not?" Hyun-woo asked. Through his connection with the core, he could feel the ship's uncertainty. It had never been repaired this way before. The Velthari would never consider such a crude solution. But humans thought differently. Humans believed in making things work however they could. "Trust me," Hyun-woo said, speaking both to Thelrix and to the ship itself. "We've been bolting metal to things for thousands of years. We're good at it." They worked through the night. Human welders attached steel supports to the ship's organic hull. Engineers ran cables and conduits, creating hybrid systems that shouldn't work but somehow did. The Times Whisper of Dawn Times looked less like a sleek alien vessel and more like a patchwork creation held together with determination and hope. 6 hours before the deadline, disaster struck. The ship's main power conduit ruptured. Energy feedback surged through the systems, and Hyun-woo felt it like lightning through his neural connection. He screamed and collapsed, his body convulsing. When he woke up minutes later, his head was on fire with pain. Min-ah and Dae-jung were leaning over him, their faces pale with fear. "The connection is damaging you," Min-ah said. "Your neural pathways can't handle the feedback. You need to disconnect before it kills you." "No." Hyun-woo struggled to sit up. "We're too close. If I disconnect now, we'll never get the ship running in time." "Then you'll die," Dae-jung shouted. "Is that ship worth your life?" Hyun-woo looked at his apprentice. 7 years ago, my sister died because a rescue ship didn't come. This vessel has saved thousands of lives. If saving it costs mine, that's a trade I can live with." Through the neural connection, he felt the ship's distress. It didn't want him to die for it, but it also couldn't fly without him. They were bound together now. For better or worse. "There might be another way," Thelrix said. She appeared at the hangar entrance, leaning heavily on a medical support frame. The doctors behind her were protesting, but she ignored them. "If I help stabilize the connection, We might be able to share the burden. You're too weak, Minna said. Your doctor said. My doctor said I could not bond with the ship alone, Thelrix interrupted. But I am not alone. Hyun-woo has already done the impossible. Let me help him finish it. Together, they approached the core sphere. Thelrix placed one hand on its surface, her blue skin glowing faintly. Hyun-woo placed his hand next to hers. The connection was different this time. Instead of Hyun-woo bearing all the weight, he felt Thelrix beside him in the ship's consciousness. She knew the ship in ways he never could, understood its rhythms and patterns, and he brought human ingenuity, the ability to improvise and adapt. Together, they guided the repair teams through the final work. Thelrix explained what the ship needed. Hyun-woo translated it into methods human engineers could accomplish. The Time's Whisper of Dawn times began to heal, not purely through Velthari methods or human ones, but through both. 4 hours before the deadline, the last repair was completed. The ship's systems came fully online, one by one. Lights blazed through the hangar. The engines hummed with power. The crystalline structures sang their musical tone. Commander Ji-won stood at the hangar observation window, tears streaming down her face. It's beautiful. Admiral Taemin stood beside her, his expression unreadable. I've never seen anything like it. No one has. Ji-won said. Because this has never happened before. Human and Velthari technology working together. A human bonding with an alien ship. Armas. Hyun-woo and Thelrix stepped back from the core sphere. Both of them were exhausted, swaying on their feet. But through their connection with the ship, they could feel its gratitude, its joy at being whole again. The Time's Whisper of Dawn times is ready to fly, Thelrix announced. But Hyun-woo felt something else through the connection. A question from the ship. A request. There's something we need to do first, he said. The original mission. The refugees the ship was trying to save. They're still out there, waiting. Thelrix's eyes widened. The refugee station. In all of this, I had forgotten. She turned to Admiral Taemin. Their life support is failing. They have perhaps 3 days left. That station is in disputed space, Taemin said. Earth Command hasn't authorized any rescue operations there. Then this isn't an Earth Command operation, Commander Ji-won said firmly. This is a joint human Velthari rescue mission. My station, my authority. Taemin studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. I suppose if I were going to be court-martialed anyway for letting an alien ship escape salvage, I might as well be court-martialed for unauthorized rescue operations too. 2 hours later, the Time's Whisper of Dawn times was ready to launch. The Velthari crew had recovered enough to take their stations, but the ship needed Hyun-woo too. His connection to the core made him an essential part of the navigation system. I'm coming with you, Dae-jung announced. Absolutely not, Hyun-woo said. This could be dangerous, which is exactly why you need backup. Dae-jung crossed his arms stubbornly. Besides, someone needs to monitor your neural connection and make sure it doesn't kill you. Mina volunteered as well, along with 6 other human engineers. Commander Ji-won personally authorized the mission. Admiral Taemin, to everyone's surprise, asked to observe from the ship's bridge. I want to see how this hybrid technology works in practice, he explained. Besides, if we're breaking regulations, we should at least gather useful data. The launch was unlike anything Hyun-woo had experienced. He stood in the bridge, though calling it a bridge didn't do it justice. The space was more like being inside a living cathedral, crystalline structures soaring overhead, displays of light showing space around them in ways human sensors never could. Through his neural connection, Hyun-woo felt the ship's excitement. The Time's Whisper of Dawn times was doing what it was made to do, going to save lives. The journey to the refugee station took 6 hours. The station was a battered orbital platform, its lights flickering weakly against the void. 847 people waited inside, their supplies exhausted, their hope nearly gone. The Time's Whisper of Dawn times docked smoothly, its living hull forming a perfect seal with the station's airlock. The evacuation began immediately. Hyun-woo watched through the ship's awareness as refugees filed aboard, families clutching children, Elderly beings leaning on younger ones, people carrying the few possessions they'd managed to save. Their faces showed exhaustion and fear, but also growing relief. Through the neural connection, he felt the ship's emotions: joy at fulfilling its purpose, pride at saving these lives, and underneath it all, a sense of healing. The trauma of the people it couldn't save before was being balanced by the people it could save now. One refugee, an elderly woman with kind eyes, stopped as she boarded. She looked around at the ship's crystalline interior, then placed her hand gently on a wall. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for coming back for us." The ship's response rippled through Hyun-woo's consciousness. Not words, but a feeling of pure warmth. "You are welcome. This is what I am for." All 847 refugees were brought aboard safely. The Times, Whisper of Dawn, Times detached from the station just as its final power reserves failed. Moments later, the platform went dark and cold. "We made it just in time," Velric said from the captain's position. She looked at Hyun-woo with something like wonder. "Without you, without human help, all these people would have died. Without the Times Whisper of Dawn *, they would have died." Hyun-woo corrected. "I just helped wake it up." Hyun-woo. Admiral Tae-min approached them. "I'm going to recommend to Earth, command that we establish a joint human Velthari rescue program. What I've seen here today, this cooperation could save countless lives." Thelrix inclined her head. "The Velthari Council will agree. Our peoples have much to learn from each other." The journey back to Ganymede Station was triumphant. The refugees were housed in the ship's guest quarters, comfortable and safe. The human engineers marveled at the hybrid systems they'd created, already thinking of improvements and refinements. Hyun-woo stood in the engine room one last time before they docked, his hand on the core sphere. Through their connection, he felt the ship's contentment. "Thank you," he thought to it. "You taught me something important." "What did I teach you?" the ship's consciousness asked. "That healing doesn't mean forgetting the pain. It means carrying it forward and choosing to help anyway." "Yes," the ship agreed. "That is wisdom." 6 months later, Ganymede Station had transformed into a center for human Velthari cooperation. The hangar where the Times Whisper of Dawn Times had first arrived now housed a permanent exchange program. Human engineers learned Velthari biomechanical techniques. Velthari specialists learned human improvisation and adaptability. Hyun-woo still maintained his connection with the Times Whisper of Dawn *, though the ship now had its own missions. Occasionally, across vast distances, he would feel it checking in on him, a gentle pulse of warmth through his consciousness, like a friend saying hello. He trained other mechanics now, teaching them not just how to fix machines but how to listen to them, how to understand what something needed rather than simply following procedures. Not everyone could bond with a living ship like he had, but they could all learn to approach their work with empathy and care. Thelrix visited often, her friendship with Hyun-woo deepening over time. They would sit in the hangar, watching new alien vessels arrive for repair, and talk about their shared experiences. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him one day. "The neural damage from the connection is permanent. You'll always carry that." Hyun-woo thought about the refugees saved, the cooperation between species, the lives that would be protected by the new rescue program. He thought about his sister Jia, and hoped that somewhere, somehow, she knew what he'd done. "No," he said simply. "I'd do it again." On the wall of Hangar Bay 7, a plaque had been installed. It showed an image of the Times Whisper of Dawn Times with its patchwork repairs, crystalline beauty mixed with human steel. Beneath it, an inscription in both human and Velthari languages. Here, human ingenuity met alien wisdom. Here, compassion bridged the stars. Here, a mechanic spoke to a dying ship and taught both species what it means to heal. Hyun-woo stood before the plaque, his hand pressed against the cold metal. Outside, the temperature still read -45 degrees Celsius. But in this hangar, in this space where two civilizations had learned to work together, it had never felt warmer. Above him, through the station's windows, ships came and went. Human vessels and Velthari ones, working side by side, rescuing those in need, saving lives. And somewhere out in the vast darkness of space, the Time's Whisper of Dawn Times continued its mission, carrying the memory of a human mechanic who had understood what it meant to be broken and had offered the most human gift of all, the chance to try again,